Lacey arrives at home to find Grammy on the patio. Both her and Adora go to greet her. "Oh, hi, sweetie," Grammy says, talking to Adora. "Lacey?" Grammy continues, confused. "It's the seer, Mom," Lacey says. "You brought her here? What were you thinking?" Grammy says. "I don't know. Everyone in the restaurant was frozen, and I just felt the urge to bring her here," Lacey says. "You see, they feed off pain, and there's always a price," Grammy says. "I'm not here for anyone. I only mean to help you find the alchemist," Adora says. Lacey turns to Adora. "I never mentioned my son was the alchemist," Lacey says. There's an awkward silence. "It's okay, Lacey. She's a seer. It's not surprising she knows. What's your price?" Grammy says. "I require the other one. Your boy's life for the other one," Adora says. What other one?" Lacey says. "She means Soren, Lacey," Grammy replies. Lacey looks at Adora, who's grinning in anticipation. Yes, of course, yes," Lacey says, excited. "Think about what you're doing, Lacey. If what Caleb is saying is right, and Soren is who he is, you would be messing up the divine order. And Lacey, there are cosmic consequences to that. You could be destroying his destiny just so he could be home," Grammy says, frustrated. "I just want my son home. Is that too much to ask?" "Mom, if it were me," Lacey says. We find Caleb and Soren running quickly through a foreign jungle. They both bob and weave around through loose branches and foliage. "How much longer?" yells Caleb, almost out of breath and trying to gain more speed. "Just keep running. There's a hill just ahead," Soren fires back. A couple yards back are the sealed locusts the size of a small puppy. The horrific buzzing sound they made grew closer and closer. "A what?" yells Caleb. Soren grabs Caleb's arm just as they reach the top of the hill, and they both jump, land, and slide down a steep, grassy hill. Above, they could still hear the locusts. As they approach the bottom, there's a makeshift floor covered in branches and foliage. "Brace yourself," yells Soren, still sliding downhill with Caleb. Both men smash through the floor and land hard. Soren is thrown into a patch of leaves and branches. "Ah!" Caleb grumbles in pain. Just as he's about to rise, a huge feline jumps down into the hole and lets out an angry. Caleb was frozen in place as he trembled in fear. "Simeon, is that you?" Soren says, brushing himself off. "Soren," the beast replies. His deep voice resonates throughout the cavern. Caleb's eyes grow large. "It speaks," Caleb says. Simeon lets out a more intimidating roar. Caleb could feel the heat of his breath. Making his way over to Simeon, Soren gives him a huge hug. Simeon digresses a little. He hates being called an it, Soren says. "Noted," Caleb says, still shaking a bit. Simeon changes form into a humanoid version of the beast. He stands as tall as 7 feet, very muscular, and the head of a lion still. his voice deep like his roar. He gave Caleb a once-over. Scrawny, like you, Simeon says. Soren laughs, patting Caleb on the back hard. Ow, Caleb says, reacting to his aches and pains. Follow me, says Simeon. He jumps out of the cavern effortlessly. Let's find you guys some food. He extends his hand to Soren. Caleb grabs Soren, and Simeon pulls them both up. They could see the locusts far ahead of them in the distance. Hope he doesn't mean those locusts, Caleb says to Soren in a low tone. I have great hearing, tiny one, Simeon growls. Caleb gulps. The three continued down a bridge built by the locals that crossed over a deep canyon. The trees below were lush and green, and far below the bridge. They had an aerial view of the jungle below. Caleb could see a pack of felines roaming underneath them. He could sense something was up in the animal kingdom. At the end of the bridge, there was a waterfall to the left. It had an opening the guys walked through, despite the raging downpour of water. It was an illusion for the most part. They continued down a somewhat narrow pathway to Simeon's palace. He is the king of this region. They were greeted by two tall, panther-like humanoids. They were not quite as large as their king, but just as intimidating. They wore gold helmets and a scythe by their side. They bowed to Simeon as he strolled through the palace to meet his queen. She is slender and hairless, also shapely, and stood almost as tall as her formidable husband. She was draped in a long white gown that almost touched the floor. It swayed gently as she moved about. Queen Naya greeted Soren and Caleb and took her place by Simeon's side. She motioned for her servants to bring food. Welcome back, Soren. It has been many moons since you visited, says Naya, offering them a seat. Simeon walks away to talk with nearby soldiers. Something going on? The king seems distracted, Soren says. A small conflict is brewing over a missing young, the first of its kind since forever, Queen Naya says. The canines have migrated above ground after decades, and some feline factions have reservations about coexisting, Simeon says. One of Naya's servants places a large basket of fruit in front of the men. Caleb grabs without hesitation. Queen Naya interjects. A young was born, both canine and feline, hybrid. She was to be a symbol of peace, to remind both races that we can coexist together. The time for separation is over. Now feline and canine factions are going to war, blaming each other for the disappearance of the young. Simeon lets out a somewhat gentle roar, as does his queen. Both Soren and Caleb share a confused look, but continue eating. One of Simeon's men walks in, and Simeon excuses himself. Queen Naya turns to Soren. It's so good to see you again, Soren. I had no idea you'd be one of the two travelers to save Titan. Your presence here was prophesied, as well as your friend here, Queen Naya says. What do you mean? Soren says. Queen Naya shows them scrolls that their ancient mystics, both canine and feline, prophesied that one day true travelers would come that would be the answer. They would be the protectors of a hybrid child that would bring Titan back to its highest state, where both feline and canine factions would work together to bring magic back to their world. And the canines would no longer live underground. Caleb looks on. What can we do? Soren says. You know Simeon doesn't practice magic, or any of the kings in the surrounding jungles. Queen Naya says, that's right. You used to show me things. You always told me to keep it a secret. The trinket you gave me helped me to remember that. I always had another family, you know, somewhere out there. Here, Soren says. Queen Naya smiles. That's right. And now we need you. Shortly before you arrived, there were rumors that the child was taken to one of our moons. There is a civilization there who practice magic secretly. They were going to protect the child, but I'm afraid General Kane is taking the rumors seriously and is on his way to the moon, along with his men, to kill the child. Queen Naya says. Rumors? Soren replies. It's a fact. However, Kane and his men will investigate, along with my king, Simeon, the Queen says. I'd like to help, Your Majesty, but what could we do? Caleb says. The prophecy is unclear how. Soren looks at the Queen. You want us to take the child, don't you? Soren says. Your energy is much different from ours, Soren. Barely detectable, even across cosmos. Our most powerful mystics would find a Titan, even if they were to travel that far. But you, they'd never find her. Keep her, and you'll know when the time is right to return her, Queen Naya says. Caleb locks eyes with Soren. I can't. Where would we keep her? He says. He turns back to meet Naya's eyes. Your cooperation is imperative. Simeon will come back, and he'll say he has to leave. I'll convince him to take you along. The Queen says. Then what? We grab the kid? Soren says. Yes, the Queen replies. We don't have the energy to get back. We were hoping to use your cosmic doorway, Caleb says. They have one on the moon, Queen Naya replies. Queen, there's one thing I don't understand. Is Simeon there to protect the child or kill him? Soren asks. He doesn't believe in any prophecies, so he'll blindly go along with the other kings. But he's a good man, just old-fashioned. But that's not the only matter at hand, I'm afraid, Soren, the Queen says. She explains that Simeon leaving the surface of Titan would break a spell, a hold she placed on Simeon, so that he would be king. Early on, when Simeon chose his bride, he was unaware that Naya practiced magic. He and his family had rejected it, as so many others did. It was how he was raised. Anyway, the day we were to wed, he found out, and he was willing to throw it all away based on present-day ideas and conformity. His alliance with me would make him king, and so I cast a love spell on him, Queen Naya explains. That sucks. Soren gives Caleb a look. Your Majesty, sorry, Caleb says. Queen Naya smiles. He means it's bad, Soren says. It's okay, Traveler Caleb. I agree, Queen Naya says. So once he's on the moon, Soren says. Queen Naya interjects. He'll be distracted. Memories will flood his mind of the day he rejected me. He'll be furious, she says. Whoa, he'll probably hate you. Caleb says. Soren gives Caleb another stern look. Your Majesty, he says, fidgeting a bit. Indeed, my marriage may be over, she says. Meanwhile, at the Preston's home, the seer has a change of heart. So do you need anything? Lacey asks. I require nothing, Adora says, with an evil grin. Grammy and Lacey look at one another, confused. He's already on his way back? And when he gets here, I'll take both of them. She freezes Grammy and Lacey in place. Fool.